Good morning, guys. So you'll have to forgive me, but the fog has been going on or rolling in like crazy, and I've been taking photos and running from one place to another for the last half an hour. It's 7:54. Actually, I've been running from here and there for an hour now, not half an hour, but that means that I had fun, right? Hopefully this one too. She's having some salad. But anyway, I came today to the mountains here. These mountains are called Caurel, and they can be pretty cool, as you can see. They can be very photogenic, and also there are plenty of trails here, so this place is gonna be definitely another one of my playgrounds for the next few weeks or months, and I hope I get to explore a lot of it. I don't know if you can see the road there, but that's the road that I'm gonna take now. Car. I'm gonna try to take a photo of that car. You see that car? I'm waiting for it to get there. Just gonna set the continue shooting. So yeah, let's keep going. Okay, so this is the viewpoint where I was going to come this morning, and it's just okay. Maybe with Luna, maybe with some weather or clouds, you can do something with those 3 peaks there, but otherwise, yeah, just okay. Alright, so I actually set up my camera here. I thought I saw a composition, but I don't like it that much. But since I'm already here with all my gear out, I wanted to talk, I wanted to mention a little bit about how I go with the settings for my digital cameras. You might have noticed from when I show the screen of this camera that I use most of the time P mode. P stands for program mode or auto mode. That means that the camera chooses the settings for me. Now, don't get me wrong, the ISO is fixed to 100. I like to shoot at ISO 100 as much as I can. I don't have any problem bumping the ISO because I need a faster shutter speed or because it's very dark or whatever. But during the day, like in situations like this, I just like to use ISO 100 because because you can. But it's the camera who is in charge of the aperture and the shutter speed. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't change those settings, because I actually like to shoot an aperture of f7 to f9 or f11 sometimes, but between those values. So let me show you how you can change those settings in P mode. So it's gonna be a little bit hard to see, but as you can see, as I said, ISO is set to 100, and these two settings right now are being chosen or selected by the camera. So if I wanted to use like a smaller aperture, because to get better quality and everything, more things in focus, f5 in this scene right now here, it's not a problem, everything is going to be in focus, but for other scenes it might be a problem. So what I do is with this dial I can just change. As you can see, the camera has pairs of settings. Like if you want to use this aperture, then it's going to change the shutter speed. So I just go to f8, for example. I chooses the shutter speed for me 1/50th of a second. Of course, the camera is not going to make the right decision all the time, but most of the time it does. But when it doesn't, because the light is complicated, because for example right now I'm backlit, so I can always adjust the exposure using this dial, the exposure compensation dial. So I can tell the camera to underexpose or overexpose from what it thinks is the best exposure for the scene. So I'm still in control. So this that I just talked about is pretty much the definition of aperture priority. That's another mode that this camera has, and many cameras, where you choose the aperture and the camera chooses the shutter speed for you. The only reason why I have P mode on my camera all the time is because if you are using aperture priority, at least in this camera, and you have it set to f8 last time you shot it, then when you turn it on, it's still gonna be at f8. And that could be a problem if I want to take a photo really quick of a scene that I just found in front of me. You see, if the camera is in P mode, every time I turn it on, the two settings are going to adjust to the scene that I have in front of me. Of course, I might still have to change the ISO because I have it fixed to 100, but it's just one thing that I have to change instead of two. Yeah. So those are the ruins of an old castle, as old as 1181, so the year 1181, so it's the 12th century, although that's the first reference that they found, so it's older than that. But anyway, it's pretty cool. Those ruins are pretty cool, and the landscape around the ruins are pretty cool. I believe you can go down there, and I'm pretty sure that it is a better viewpoint of the castle. But who thought about putting that power line right there? I mean, you have the whole mountain, the whole country here to put the power line, and you put it next to the castle. So I've been walking around here for a while. I wasn't able to find a better place to take the photo from. From here I'm not only able to get the silhouette of the castle, but also a little bit of the mountains, so it conveys I know, the place where this castle is, the surrounding landscape and everything. That's the cool part about this, not the castle itself that is in very bad shape. But yeah, it is a pretty cool place, and that's such a bummer that they put that thingy there. I mean, they could even have put it here. I know. Oh well. I'm finishing this exposure. It's 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I'm using a 3-stop ND Grad for the sky because it's very bright compared to the castle that is very dark. I don't want detail on the castle, just more or less the silhouette, but without the ND grad it would be too much, like pitch black and pure white. So that allows me to actually have a little bit of detail in the castle and a little bit of detail on the sky. And of course I'm using a 15 stop ND filter, so that's what allows me to have a 3-minute long exposure that is finishing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now. So we'll see. So that exposure didn't work at all because I made a mistake and I put the ND grad in front of the lens and then the ND filter. So yeah, that's not how it works. You have to put the ND filter first and then the graduated filter. So while I'm waiting for that exposure to finish, I just wanted to expand on what I was talking about earlier about the settings. You know, when I first got when I got started with photography more seriously, I got this camera, the A6000. It was my first camera, interchangeable lens camera. That was cool, and it had all the manual controls that I didn't have in other cameras. So it was all new and exciting. And for a while, I think it took me like 3 months or something like that, I was shooting everything in manual mode, ISO, everything manual, and with a manual lens too, so manual focus and everything. Okay, this one should be over. I did that because I thought it was what you were supposed to do. You know, you buy a professional camera with manual controls and everything, you need to use them. At that time I used to have a Rokinon 12mm for that camera. 12mm in that camera is like 18 full frame equivalent, so it's pretty wide. So for 3 months I took all the photos in manual mode, manual focus, and with a 18mm lens. That means that every photo, every shot that I have from that time is boring and bad. Most of them not properly exposed, because using manual mode was not my only mistake. But at that time I thought that, you know, if you are in front of a vista like this, you have to get everything in the frame. That's the way to take photos, and that's why I was using that super wide lens, 18mm. And yeah, all my photos, as I said, from that time are not good. They are boring because there is no subject, everything is a subject. But anyway, my point is, don't be afraid of using any mode that your camera came with. They are there for a reason. They are features of your camera. There is nothing wrong with using manual. If you want to use manual, there is nothing wrong with using program mode or auto mode if you want to use that, as long as you know what the camera is doing. As long as you know that if you use the auto mode and the aperture is f8 or f16 or f4, that changes your depth of field, and that changes your exposure and changes your shutter speed. As long as you know all that, it's fine to shoot in program mode. The mode doesn't have anything to do with the quality of your photos. The quality of your photos is going to be the same no matter which mode you use. The mode just knows about the settings. If you use the correct settings, it doesn't matter if you use manual or program or whatever. For me personally, program mode or auto mode works just perfectly fine for this kind of situations, for this landscape photography. As I said, I just changed the exposure compensation when I have to adjust something. And the only reason why I use manual mode is for the long exposures, because of now, for example, now I'm taking a 3-minute long exposure, and the camera is not gonna do that by itself in any mode. You have to tell the camera to do that. Expose this photo for 3 minutes. And that's pretty much the only case where I use manual mode. Well, and at night, of course, for night photography.